Pro Football Today is live for one final hour here on a Saturday now, turning into an afternoon. It's Kevin Walsh, it's Donnie Rightside, and it is Joe Lisi with you here across the SportsGrid network. Sunday morning crunch on a Saturday. What better way? Joe, how do we feel? Excited? Seeing it clearly?
Seeing it clearly, but we're now into the afternoon window, so I'm thinking like a little Greek yogurt, a little,
all right.
blueberries.
But why that? Why aren't we thinking pizzas and cheesesteaks?
Nah, too heavy. That's a Sunday. We're on a Saturday morning crunch, so this is light. This is a little more egg-based, I think.
A little more egg-based?
Omelet, cheddar cheese, a little cheese.
Go for that. Did you have an omelet this morning, though?
I did. How about a cheese board, though? I'm still hungry. A little shake. What do you think, Kev? No good?
I mean, a shake,
yeah,
but
milkshake, though?
Yeah, that's
no,
it's not going to be the kind of shake that I want. Like, you're going to have, protein and...
Yeah,
can we get a Reese's milkshake?
How about a peanut butter or almond butter?
Ooh, always with the
almond butter milkshake.
Yeah, whose man is
little honey, raw honey?
What is going on here? We were downstairs getting coffee. He's eyeing up these protein power balls. They've probably been on his mind the whole show.
They were.
No soy. Loves the no soy.
I love it. I'm soyless.
Oh, sorry. You got to stall for 15 then, because I don't want to. Unless you want to do the radio, I could throw it to you, but you got to give it a couple ticks.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll give it a couple of ticks.
So we sit inside.
Maybe producer play, maybe something like that.
The producer play.
I did just grab Mark.
That's surprised he doesn't force producer plays into the show for reasons.
Who, me?
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I was going to say you for reasons, but then you're right for his.
Yeah.
So as we welcome in our radio audience, Joe Lisi, Donnie Rightside, Kevin Walsh, Saturday morning crunch, talking a little eggs, talking a little bacon.
Yes.
How about that?
All right.
Should I jump right into it?
Let's do it.
I did 2 in the first game, so you might get mad at me, and then 1 in the late game in terms of the Saturday morning crunch. But we'll talk about the game in terms of Baltimore, Houston, C.J. Stroud on the road. We know that Houston's averaging 247 passing yards per game. That goes right into the strength of Baltimore's secondary, giving up a $191 to opposing quarterbacks. So that's why I like John Mechie, secondary wide receiver. We talk about Nico Collins, his number today, 80.5. Mechie, 4 receptions, 44 yards last week, down to 23.5. I think he breaks out. Don't be shocked either if Mechie is the guy to hit pay dirt today for the Houston Texans, plus 550. And then I'm going with the Cyclone, Iowa State, Xavier Hutchinson. He's a big body, goes about 6'2". He's 195 pounds. Why do I say that? Red zone opportunities, 10.5 is his number. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. So I'm not looking big names. I'm looking checkdowns for C.J. Stroud, at least early on. That could potentially open up maybe Nico Collins later in this ball game. And then the late game. We talked about Jordan Love. We talked about his productivity through the air, and rightfully so. But they tacked an 8.5 rushing number on him, down from 9.5. The reason why I like that, potential wet track, divisional playoff game. San Francisco likes to play a lot of man-to-man coverage. With the game on the line, that's 1 run. So give me over the 8.5 for Jordan Love today.
Yeah, I'm never going to argue about it. Jordan Love, 8.5 rush number, gets a really good pass rush. That means he might be forced out of the pocket a couple times, and that makes some sense here. But by the way, it's funny about this, too. Looks like Joe and I are going to cover the board here with the Houston Texans at the wide receiver position. But if I'll go with my Saturday morning crunch here, the good part about this is Kevin won't get mad at me because I only went 1 in the first game and 2 in the second game, so evens it up a bit for us, right?
To give one, I am only using the Niners game in my crunch, so
all right.
No
now, what I was actually going to do with this segment was, give a couple plays for tomorrow, but we got to stick it today and
that'd have been good. Listen, Sunday morning crunch. I had to do the Sunday games.
He should give a Super Bowl MVP.
That's true. Can we clip that?
Well, honestly, actually, just in case, we don't know if he can hold on, to be honest, right? Back to back could be tough. He should give today's picks and tomorrow's picks just in case.
That is true. I might need a couple segments off tomorrow.
Season.
But let's get it started. I'm going to go Robert Woods over 20.5 receiving yards here for the Houston Texans. He is the number 2 wide receiver coming into this football game, was really banged up over the past couple weeks, but getting full practices in this week, he should be good to go for this one. And also, secondary option, I just need 20.5 yards. If I think this team is is losing, I'm going to get some extra opportunities. But to be honest, I don't expect this to be here, 14 yards late in the fourth quarter. I expect Robert Woods probably to have that 21 yards in the bank here before the half is even done. So I'm looking forward to Robert Woods here. Let's get to game number 2. Christian Watson, big play wide receiver. Again, buying low in this situation. Can you imagine if Christian Watson was healthy somewhere around week 13, week 14, and they posted a 28.5 number for him? He practiced all week, full go. Last week, he said, well, Donnie, they didn't use him that much last week. Hear me out on this. When you're an NFL head coach, you're not going to game plan for a player you don't think is going to be in the game until you see him warm up before the game. It was almost like an additive, great, we'll use him if we can get him. Now the game plan would be put in, and quite frankly, he might only need one catch to get that 28.5. I'm going to go Christian Watson a little bit later. And we talked to Jason Lockenfor earlier. He also loved George Kittle. I like him over 50.5 receiving yards in this game. If we're taking a look at target practice here, 8 of 10 games, Kittle, in the last 10 games, 8 times he's been over 50 receiving yards. I think he's going to have a big game out there in the Bay Area. I'm looking for a sweep here on my crunch.
And what is the last, 23 picks you've given out on your own? 22-1,
yeah,
maybe,
exactly.
something like that?
Yeah, I don't want no comments from you guys. I don't even know you want you guys reviewing my picks here. I just want to stay clean.
Wow, that's it.
That's how good it is. Yeah,
all right,
that's it.
We'll move over then. Again, I'm just doing the Niners-Packers game. My best bet comes from the other game.
I mean, it's probably all Brock Purdy, right, in this game?
Shots fired.
Part of the reason, I'll be totally honest, part of the reason I did not reinvest in like a lot of the most X yards is because everything would have just been Purdy pass.
I would have loved it. If this was all Purdy, I would have loved it.
It would have been playing the long game here. The first pick is something that honestly may have worked and sell me something. It's Christian McCaffrey under 18.5 rush attempts. But under in 9 of his last 11 games this season, in his Niner career, which is 30 games postseason included, he's under in 24 out of the 30 games. 4 of those 6 overs came within the first 5 weeks of this season. And if you look last year during the playoffs, you would imagine, well, CMC saw a major uptick. 15, 10, 15. And again, that was 15 against Seattle, blowout. 10 against Dallas, close football game. And then the 15 in the NFC Championship game surprised me. If you would have made me guess with the way that game played out, I would have figured he had about 25 carries, the whole non-Brock Purdy game. CMC's banged up coming into the postseason. We know that the Niners are here for a marathon, not a sprint. I think CMC's under the 18.5 rush attempts here today. Then a pair of rushing receiving props. One you would expect and one maybe not. Debo over 81.5 rushing plus receiving. In 4 of the last 5 postseason games he's played with a real quarterback removing that NFC title game, he has gone over this prop. We've also seen Green Bay struggle against number 2 wideouts. Godwin abused this team. We saw Michael Gallup go wild last week. The Lions did it to him both times. And the Packers' run defense is awful. So Debo can hit them from both avenues. But then also give me Jaden Reed. Over 42.5 rushing plus receiving. Last week shut out, but went over this number in 7 of his final 8 regular season games with 68.3 yards per game. Give me Reed and Debo over the rushing plus receiving. Cap in next here on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's all a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted them out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Schuler,
Mike Schuler was a disaster. Dubas was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live on SportsGrid here. It is a Saturday afternoon pro football today. Now joined by the pro football doc, Dr. David Chow. We'll be speaking to Doc both today and tomorrow. Doc, I want to start with the game between Baltimore and Houston. A lot has been said about this Texans defensive line being banged up. How are you evaluating the Texans on that side of the ball heading into this game?
There's no question the Texans have been banged up on the defensive side of the ball, but they're actually getting healthier. Will Anderson, with his high ankle sprain, the number 3 overall pick, is getting healthier. No Jerry Hughes, but everyone else is coming back. So they're trending in the right direction. Of course, on the other side of the defense, no Marlon Humphrey. Yes, Kyle Hamilton is back, but is he 100%? And if you go by our deltas, Houston's headed up and Baltimore is headed a little bit down. And, of course, no Mark Andrews, but he's getting closer.
And quickly, Doc, on Mark Andrews not playing this week, if Baltimore does advance, what would you put the percentages at for him to play in an AFC championship game?
Well, even though he had 2 straight full practices this week, our 6 score for him, Sports Injury Central score, was only 46, meaning not even likely to play and not effective if he does. Our estimate all along is he'd be ready and healthy for the Super Bowl. Could he play in the conference championship? Maybe, yeah. And he's a little tiny bit ahead of schedule. But you have to remember, full practice, and he had 2 full practices. Full practice does not mean full health. It just means the player did everything the team asked him to do. And it's part of the coach speak game.
Doc, going then to San Francisco and Green Bay, this Niners offense with 2 key guys, Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey, banged up towards the end of the season. How do you guys at SixScore.com feel about those 2 key guys for San Francisco tonight?
Really not worried about either one. Christian McCaffrey will be fine. Trent Williams will be fine, barring new injury. Still some worry on San Francisco for their defensive line, which is headed in the right direction. Armstead is supposed to play, but doubt he's going to take all reps. Hargrave and Kinlaw have come back from some injuries. Dre Greenlaw with the Achilles will try and play through. Of course, they've lost Hufanga for a while. So a few little defensive question marks for San Francisco, but offensively believe that the 49ers are completely healthy. And that bye week came at a good time for them, as well as the Week 18 rest.
Yeah, it certainly did. Doc, closing out this big ball game with Jair Alexander. Questions around his availability tonight. How do you guys feel about the shutdown corner for the Pack heading into this matchup?
Not worried about Jair Alexander playing in the game. Left ankle injury, the same side that he injured the week before in practice, but it was a different injury. You expect him to be full go. Who knows? Maybe he'll even be a captain. I'm just kidding.
At any moment, Doc, it is a possibility. We appreciate you stopping by with us here on a Saturday morning. That is the Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chow. Again, make sure you go to SixScore.com and get all the information and injury analysis that you need to make your bets heading into the divisional round. Doc, we appreciate it.
And I apologize for the other football game in the background, soccer game, kids soccer this morning. I apologize for the noise.
Well, Doc, I hope you upload the Six Score for everybody in the background there. We'll try and find some edges on who is out there.
There it
available.
is. We got a guaranteed pick again. We got a guaranteed pick again.
That's good.
I love it.
A guaranteed pick.
4-0. Awesome.
Here it comes. Another 2-0 this week, and then another 2-0 tomorrow. Appreciate it, as always, Doc. Guys, I want to bring you in here, and I mentioned the Christian McCaffrey pick that I played on that under 18.5 rush attempts here. Doc mentions he feels confident about CMC heading into this game. He has had 2 full weeks off now. So the last game they played was against the Commanders as well. So, when was the last time this guy played a real football game, it feels like? How do you guys feel about McCaffrey specifically heading into tonight's game against Green Bay? I'll start with you, Joe.
I think he's going to have a huge role. In terms of your bet and big picture in regards to health, I think it's how competitive is this ball game, because if they do, let's say, extend the lead the way they did against Seattle in this type of situation last year, I would not have Christian McCaffrey out there in the third or fourth quarter unless this is a 10-point game or less in terms of that type of situation. I would utilize more touches with Eli Mitchell and some of the secondary backs to preserve Christian McCaffrey. You were looking to win a Super Bowl. You want to get there, and if Christian McCaffrey is not in that offense, that's a huge blow to what Shanahan wants to do. So, again, I think you're good in regards to your look. The only way you could lose is if this game gets pushed where Green Bay is in it from start to finish and they have to utilize McCaffrey as the workhorse down the stretch to win the ball game. That's where you maybe lose it. But health shouldn't be an issue, I think, early on.
You know what's interesting about this, though? Because, again, when you start talking these football games out, the wheels start spinning, right? And, again, Kevin had another play there, which is Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel, and I know Kyle Shanahan isn't entering into this game saying, you know what, I got to be real cautious with McCaffrey. If he's good to go, he's good to go. He'll get his rushes. But the question is he going to get 15? Is he going to get 20? What's the game going to call for? But now you start to bring in Deebo Samuel and say, you know what, let me spell a couple of those carries. Maybe I don't want to go to Eli Mitchell, but I'm going to save up Deebo for the season. Maybe he gets 4 or 5 carries, which, Kevin, could be the difference between, hey, you know what, I got 17 carries, but you know what, I probably should have got 19 carries in that spot, and Deebo gets the extra hands off.
So I'll say that is part of the reason I'm betting Jayden Reed.
Yeah.
Jayden Reed didn't have a rush attempt in the final 3 games, and nor last week against the Cowboys, but also, they just control from the word go.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a guy that averages on the season almost 11 yards per rush attempt. His receiving prop is 40.5. The rushing receiving is 42.5. I just need one.
Yep.
And I'm going to feel like I stole 10 yards off the book. And if they give him 2, you know what I mean? So those are the kind of things that get interesting. I want to go back to you, Donnie, though, on Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
Preseason Ravens Super Bowl backer. And Andrews, obviously, even though they elevated the receiver room, and we've seen that be the case, likely looks incredible as well. But Lamar wants to have his top guy and Mark Andrews out there. How important is Andrews' availability to you, not being there today, but potentially being back if they're in a Super Bowl game?
I love them not actually putting him in the game today. Say, Don, that's stupid. You always want your best players out there. Yeah. Don't rush this guy back. You're a double-digit favorite. And trust me, the difference between this football game is not Mark Andrews playing and not playing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be the number 1 overall seed. In fact, you might not have made the playoffs here because of how long he's been out. You beat the San Francisco 49ers and you beat the Miami Dolphins with ease without him in the lineup. Your only goal is, even if you have to hold him out to the AFC Championship game or even the Super Bowl itself, which is another bye week here, just having him on the field, and you brought up the great point there. Isaiah Likely doesn't mature if Mark Andrews is still hanging around. Likely now the number one. You have that field like the New England Patriots had going back with Hernandez and Gronkowski for the Super Bowl. It's like, whoa, we have two legitimate tight end prospects to go with our wideouts here.
And I always say this in regards to productivity, and Donnie's right in regards to Mark Andrews. It's big picture. That is the security blanket ultimately for Lamar Jackson, especially in red zone opportunities. But let's just say Mark Andrews was averaging 80 receiving yards per game. It's not going to go from 80 to 0, right? I mean, the productivity drop-off. It's going to go maybe from 80 to 65, 80 to 60. Yep. So that's where the misconception about, Andrews is not in that lineup, it's a huge blow to the offense. No, it's not, because Likely's in there. He's a versatile player. They're going to create mismatches, and the drop-off isn't going to be 100% to 0. It might go, at the worst, maybe 70%, 75%. So you're not losing that much in regards to productivity from an offensive standpoint. You're losing the confidence factor with Lamar Jackson. In a big spot, we know that's where he looks to when he's under pressure, when he's under duress, especially red zone opportunities. But they feel confident heading into this ball game not to rush him back.
Yeah, I do think it is remarkable, though, the lack of talent that was in their passing, or pass catching room for so long. And now you go, I got two tight ends I trust. Zay Flowers been awesome as a rookie. Odell
saved him healthy.
I mean, look, Odell is postseason proven.
Yep.
You mentioned it during our incredible Super Bowl MVP breakdown that we might just break back. No,
but
37 and a half.
That's the whip.
He might have been on his way to Super Bowl MVP, and he stayed healthy in that game. Absolutely incredible. We'll talk to Adam Caplan next year on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. And we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula.
Mike Shula was a disaster. Dubas was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live on SportsGrid, now joined by NFL insider Adam Caplan. And Cap, I want to get straight to it here. We have added another head coaching candidate off the board. We had Gerard Mayo with the succession plan in New England. Now Antonio Pierce, with the interim tag removed, becomes the man officially in Las Vegas. What did you hear about how this situation played out?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So after Josh McDaniels, guys, was fired, they obviously moved ahead with Antonio Pierce as their linebackers coach, who had been a guy that had coached college football. In fact, when I met Antonio, let's say in 2015, he was working with us at ESPN. He was deciding what he wanted to do with his career. He had private businesses. And, you fast forward now, 8 or 9 years later, and now he's the head coach of the National Football League. Here's why. He held everything together. He was 5-4, which is pretty good considering what happened there. The players tune out Josh McDaniels. They felt too tight. They weren't playing freely. That's what you want your players to do, not worry about being yelled at. Team source told me that McDaniels was on his players all the time. They didn't take to his coaching. And Pierce, being an assistant, knew this. He was aware of it, and he let these guys play freely. He didn't let them do what they wanted, but he had them stop overthinking on the practice field and in games, and it worked. And look, they looked into other head coaching candidates, but the players really spoke up for Pierce. And Mark Davis, I'm told, was so impressed with Pierce's ability to keep everything together when they could have folded. And guys, they pushed for a wild card spot for a while there. In the end, they're not talented enough. Now, what I'm interested to see going forward is, what does Pierce do? He's going to be hiring an offense coordinator. Yes, they don't have a starting quarterback. Aiden O'Connell did a good job. He certainly could be a backup, but they have to figure out who the quarterback's going to be for the future. That is a big deal going forward here for the Raiders. And give Patrick Graham, by the way, the defense coordinator, credit. He was phenomenal this season with not a ton of talent to work with on the back end. Do one of the best jobs in the NFL here. And Patrick Graham deserves to be a head coach someday. He's a really good coach.
By the way, Adam, the Raiders did push for a playoff spot, a wild card position. The Philadelphia Eagles, they weren't pushing for a wild card spot. They wanted to be the number 1 seed or number 2 seed. They fell to the 5 and got hammered by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road on Monday Night Football. Nick Sirianni, who record-wise has done a very good job. 3 years with the Eagles, 3 years in the playoffs, includes 1 Super Bowl appearance. But there were some talks around Philadelphia that could Nick Sirianni leave his job? Could Nick Sirianni be fired from his job? Give us some of the inner workings of the Philadelphia Eagles and what's going on, and will Nick Sirianni keep his job with the Birds?
Yeah, so Donnie, here's the way it works with owner-CEO Jeffrey Lurie. So what he does is, and all owners do this, he has a year-end, season-end meeting. You can't have these in season. The two, Nick Sirianni and Jeffrey Lurie, talk during the season. They've had some meetings, but you can't have in-depth meetings until after the season. And just like in 2020, after that bad season for Doug Peterson when they were 4-11-1, Lurie had his meeting with Peterson. He wanted to keep him, but as I warned people, he's not staying unless he's got a good plan. Jeffrey Lurie was not on board with that plan. In fact, the reason why they had 2 meetings, not 1, Donnie, is because Peterson's first meeting was so bad, and the owner didn't like his plan. They had a second meeting that didn't go well, and then he wound up firing Peterson. Here's my understanding is that Sirianni's pitched his plan. They're going to hire new offensive coaches. They're going to change the scheme up a little bit. We'll see what happens with Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator, whether he stays or goes. Defensively, they're going to have a new coordinator. And over a series of days here, we're going to see if Jeffrey Lurie's liking that plan. Now, they have to, and as I understand, Donnie, they've been checking into who might be available, contract situations with assistants around the National Football League. They're looking more for a guy on offense who could run a West Coast system. They tried this in Doug's last year with the Eagles. They brought in Rich Scangarello from the Niners. Didn't work very well, but they're looking into that West Coast offensive tree because you look at the West Coast guys, Donnie, right now. Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay they're the best right now. That's who everybody looks to. It's not that the Vic Fangio scheme is done so poorly this season. It's been with Vic in Miami. It's been injuries. Its coaching has not been quite good enough. And I know the Eagles, they like that scheme. Nick Sirianni likes that, and we'll see what he does going forward. But, boy, you're right. Sirianni's been to playoffs 3 years in a row, coming back from a Super Bowl appearance a year ago. And yet it's all falling apart, losing 6 out of 7. And quite frankly, let's call it like it is, not competitive against the Bucs this past Monday night.
Cap, we'll turn our attention to the games of today and tomorrow. Big ball game in Baltimore, Houston, and the Ravens. We know that it looks like Mark Andrews not going to play. John Mechie should have a bigger role today as well, correct?
Yeah, so my one concern, Joe, let's look at the Texans first before we get to the Ravens. So John Mechie, you might remember a couple years ago, he was coming back from a serious illness. Thank goodness he's okay. So it's taken him a while to get started here. Now, Noah Brown, unfortunately, who was their top backup receiver, he went on IR with a back injury, had a shoulder injury before that. Tank Dell, who was an amazing breakout player as your rookie wide receiver, broke his leg. He's out until the spring. So now Mechie's going to start. Robert Woods most likely will be the third receiver who signed a big deal. They cannot afford any more injuries. That's why Dalton Schultz's target numbers are going to go up here. I think we know going in here that he's a guy's got a significant role here, no question about it. Nico Collins, who, by the way, in the first matchup had a bunch of shot plays in week 1. Yeah, the Texans didn't move the ball well, but Nico Collins has had a great season, and with C.J. Stroud playing. And the one thing I heard you guys before I was coming on here, the one thing, though, that with the Texans defense, yes, they're great against the run. They are not good at covering tight ends. They're fifth worst in the National Football League at giving up yardage, touchdowns, and receptions. By the way, Isaiah Likely, who you guys talked about, he scored in 5 of his last 6 games. So he's a factor. Mark Andrews, by the way, the deadline was yesterday at 4 p.m. Eastern to activate him for the game. They did not. So it's going to be Likely as the man, and Charlie Kohler, another draftee last year at tight end, backing him up.
And then, Cap, what are you hearing around tonight's game here? San Francisco, the pressure is on. Green Bay, one of those things where it has obviously been a successful season, but, there's no stopping here. They've got their eyes on another upset. What are you hearing around this game?
Yeah, this is fascinating because, quite frankly, the Packer defense, guys, has underachieved all season. They saved their best for last. Joe Barry's been under fire since he became the D coordinator a couple years ago. They hadn't played well this season. They're immensely talented, and they underachieved, but they put it together last week. Throw out the numbers from Dak Prescott. He was terrible the first half, and that's when it matters in the first half. It tells you how the game's going to go. And quite frankly, Joe Barry coached his best game, I would say, with the Packers. He was phenomenal. They play with tremendous discipline. Didn't give up big plays when it mattered. Now, you look at this game here, what I find fascinating are 2 things. It's going to rain, barring the forecast changing, but what we've learned this season with rain is don't overvalue it. There's not going to be much wind. It's going to be under 10 miles an hour. We've seen it time after time. This has really not stopped teams. Brock Purdy's well rested. It's been 3 weeks, just about, for these starters. They come in very healthy. I'm told CMC's calf is fine, his right calf strain. He's ready to go. The only thing here for the Packers is they got to handle this. I'm actually glad that they were on the road last week, to be honest with you. Now, they take that confidence of winning a big game on the road. They blew out the host Cowboys. What I find interesting is the line has moved. The public money here is clearly on the Niners. They're a public team here. The line moved this morning from 9.5 to 10 points. It's interesting, but I was telling Scotty yesterday, I like the Packers to cover this number, not to win, but to cover the 10 points.
Adam, let me ask you a question here, because sometimes on-the-field stuff just as interesting as off-the-field stuff, meaning the next coach is in line to be hired here. Bill Belichick looks like going back for that second interview in Atlanta. We're still worrying to see where Mike Vrabel's going to go, and also Jim Harbaugh coming back to the NFL. Any tips here that you can give us on those coaching moves and where you think some of those guys wind up?
Yeah, I know some people are speculating, and it's fair because Harbaugh has done this before where he gains leverage in contract negotiations because the Michigan Bailey wants him back. But Jim has always flirted with the fact, talking to people close to him, that he would go back someday. I still think he's going to. I'm a little surprised it's taken him this long. It never worked with him with the Raiders, though he knows Mark Davis very well. As you know, his first coaching job after retirement was with the Raiders. He knew Al Davis very well. There's a good relationship with the franchise. In fact, Mark tried to hire him 5 years ago, but he wasn't leaving Michigan. When you look at the Atlanta situation, it's fascinating. Belichick has already had a second interview. They have interest in Harbaugh. the reason why, guys, I think Arthur Blank is doing what he's doing is at 81 years old, he's not looking to develop a young head coach, and it's going to take 3, 4, 5 years to get back and possibly win a Super Bowl. With Dan Quinn, he got there, and Thomas Dimitroff, who is the GM. Remember, he came from New England. That's part of why Arthur Blank is interested in Belichick. But Belichick is looking to get back. But the thing with the Falcons is, guys, they don't have their starting quarterback. They don't have that, which I find interesting here, that you've got 2 veteran coaches who think enough of it to look at that situation. But it's going to be interesting. And Vrabel of the coaching cycle has been the one that surprised me. I thought there'd be more interest. I know he interviewed with the Chargers. This guy's a phenomenal coach. Things fell apart with him with ownership there in Tennessee, but they have a bad roster in Tennessee. That's not a desirable job from talking to coaching agents. It's an okay roster. Actually, it's not really okay. It's less than okay. They've got some talent that, quite frankly, is underachieved. But let's call it like it is, guys. Vrabel's a terrific coach and really should have more interest than he's had.
Quickly, Cap, out of curiosity, I know you said you don't think Sirianni would be moved on from, but if he was, do you think he would find work this offseason, or maybe would take that year off like Doug Peterson did?
That's a good question, Kevin. If something fell apart here over the next 48 to 72 hours and Jeffrey Lurie just decided he's not happy with the solution here, that's a great question, because there's still a lot of openings here, and Nick's got tremendous energy. He would have interest because, again, 3 years in the playoffs and a Super Bowl appearance. But they would have to find out. This thing is, you have to find out why coaches fail. That's it. You can't just make blanket statements. Oh, bad job this year. Why didn't it go well? You got to have better information than that.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate it as always, NFL insider Adam Caplan. We'll talk more to him tomorrow. But up next, we recap and give you our picks for the 2 big games today in the divisional round right here on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. And we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula.
Mike Shula was a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I was I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, let's make it happen here. 2-game whip around.
Uh-oh.
Now, you guys prefer the 2-game whip around or like the 15-game
15.
whip around?
I have 15.
Why don't why don't we just make games and just go around, then we'll finally get to the
we
final
could go
two.
back to the MVP market.
That's true.
I could just pepper in some NBA college.
That's true.
I got a sizzle playing college
It's
basketball.
live right now. Hold on. You want me to give you an? No, I'll give you. I don't want to.
Is it good or bad?
I don't know.
About to blow up.
Listen, you're right. That's going to be nice. Let's get into these games here. As we begin in Baltimore, a 9.5-point line, total 43.5. The Ravens are favored as we would have anticipated it as Lamar Jackson against C.J. Stroud. Where do you look, Joe?
I like the dog in this ball game. I'm going with the young guns, C.J. Stroud, the Houston Texans. They showed me something in terms of the rematch last week against the Cleveland Browns. Secondary was very opportunistic against a very good quarterback, at least playing that way in terms of Joe Flacco. 2 interceptions, 1 to the house to seal that deal. But it was the front seven, guys. We didn't talk about it enough. Kareem Hunt, Jerome Ford basically taken out of that ball game. They held Cleveland to only 2.8 yards per rush. I don't think they duplicate 2.8, but I still think they contain the Baltimore rushing attack enough to be well within this number. Again, they could be down 15, 16 points in the fourth quarter. As long as I see C.J. Stroud, that offense, I'm taking the Texans plus the 9.5. Do lean to the under because I'm worried about Baltimore coming out of the bye week with Lamar, who hasn't performed all that well in a playoff spot.
Side's a tough one for me. I do think the Baltimore Ravens win this game, but I've said all week long, if there's an upset chance from a team that's getting the 10 points here, getting roughly 10 points, it's probably going to be the Texans because of their quarterback. He can throw in any temperatures, and also you take a look at a Baltimore offense, and I'm knocking him a little bit, right? You saw how many points they scored against the Dolphins and the 49ers, but I think their MO would be, let's just get out there, ground and pound. We'll make the plays when we need to. We'll win this football game, which then leaves that back door wide open for 9.5. Because the one thing we do know, C.J. Stroud's not coming out of this football game if he's down 14 points with 6 minutes to go. He's going to keep firing downfield, but I'm opposite you. I like the total in this game. I like the over 43.5, but it's also one of those where drive home from the show, get in front of the couch, see what the conditions really are in Baltimore and how they're handling it, because you saw last week, minus 37 degrees. This is nowhere near that temperature, but still, we're going to get around 0 degrees technically when you factor in the wind chill. I still think these offenses come out kicking, and also, from a team coming back, this is going to be the Miami Dolphins this week. Oh, dead in the water at 7. C.J. Stroud will go down chucking, Kevin, in this ball game.
He absolutely will. Look, the look for me is Texans and over. Mm-hmm. Texans team total at 16.5 is the most appetizing number for me.
What do you think about that, by the
I
way?
like that. I mean,
like 16.5, doesn't that just seem like it's supposed to be like that? Get it?
You know, I could see them in the area of 20. I still think the game is an under. I think we could see,
I'd say this. If the game is 20, 21-14, 20-14, right? They cover without the team total. Well, that's
tip your cap.
Yes, exactly.
How about 23-7? I think they're getting 17. I think that might be, the top of it.
Kevin and I talked about on the
not
radio multiple times. It's like, if you like the Texans today, like, in what world is this 14-13 Texans win in a slugfest?
It wouldn't
and even
shock
if they get blown out,
right.
40-17, you still got it.
Yeah, that's the look, because that's why I don't have the strongest read on the 43.5, because I don't know where I'm landing on this Ravens offense. Like, some of the Ravens props are tempting. One of them is actually going to be my best bet. We'll do that in a moment. But it is one of those things for me that if I take the 9.5 and the Ravens scored 35 and I don't cover, I wouldn't be completely stunned, right? If I played the over in this football game and we didn't get there because Baltimore didn't do enough, I also would. For me, the look is I think this Texans offense, in the absence of Marlon Humphrey, can do enough here to get through that 16.5. Yeah. I will say, some of the Devin Singletary props are interesting. I loved your breakdown on his receiving number. I may end up just adding his rushing prop into it. Baltimore has struggled against the running back position, and the Texans will, in moments play things close to the vest here. I think Singletary can still have a bigger game than the books are anticipating right now with where some of his numbers line up.
Yeah, how are they going to attack? If they attack this the way they did against Indianapolis when they were on the road, first play, big shot to Nico Collins, that opens up the rushing attack. So for me, I mean, it's a great look. I like Singletary coming out of the backfield. I like those secondary wide receivers, but I'll say this in regards to the total for me. You know me, I love totals and the overs. I'm going to wait to see how this game plays out in terms of the first quarter. If it dips down into the high 30s or even the mid-30s, depending upon no scoring, for me, with these quarterbacks, that's an opportunity then to re-jump in at a cheaper price. So do want to see if the Ravens do come out a little bit tight. Think about it. They're averaging 156 rushing yards per game. If they're getting chunk plays as it relates to the rushing attack, there might not be a need to throw for Lamar Jackson. That's why I want to see how it plays out. But it's a good look with Singletary rushing and receiving as well.
By the way, you take a look at the Texans. Like, the game plan for a team that's getting double digits is not, you know what, let's be conservative in the first half. Let's run it. Let's keep it close at the half. You throw haymaker after haymaker, hoping to catch one and be like, you know what? We're here for the rest of the ball game. And that's, again, getting back to that 16.5. Even if Kevin and Joe, if they don't score in the first half, the Texans, that doesn't mean, you know what, we played field position. Absolutely not.
I will also remind people, because it is out there and available, I did bet Lamar's postseason long rushing prop at 117.5 under, but hand up, I've lost confidence as we've gotten closer. His numbers are booked more aggressively than I thought. His 50.5 is the number today. Numbers-wise, it says under. Narrative-wise, it says actually he could blow through that. I will say, if you just showed me Lamar's rushing statistics at the final salvo here, I think I could give you a good read on how this game went. He runs for 75, 80. They're in trouble all game long. That is not what they want to do anymore this season. That's kind of the change. Let's get to Niners-Packers here. Double-digit line now. Total 50.5. The side has been difficult, even if I think in my heart I do lean towards San Francisco. But something you and I agree on, I think, Joe, is actually towards this under at 50.5. I think there's aspects of the Niners that will be more conservative and play it a bit slower. And I just think that the Niners, or the Packers, are coming off of as good of a game as an offense can possibly play. And typically that wraps around the other direction to be on the road against the number one seeded defense in San Francisco here. I'm leaning towards under, looking towards under 50.5.
I'm with you as well. And again, you know, the best defense sometimes is to keep the opposing quarterback on the sidelines, right? So if you are worried about Brock Purdy and all of those playmakers, maybe they want to sustain drives a little bit more. That means a controlled passing attack, short to intermediate routes, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed. Even in terms of fly sweeps, I think that's a great look in terms of your 42.5 rushing and receiving. That neutralizes the front seven. And we talk about Aaron Jones. He is the key to this ball game as well, because we talked about his ground attack, 119 rushing yards per game over the last 4 weeks, but he can also catch the football out of the backfield. He's been over his number today 5 times this season. So how do they neutralize that front seven is get your playmakers out in space. You move the chains, and with the weather, Kev, that is the biggest concern. I want to see how wet it is as it relates to this ball game. It could be a sloppy, ugly type of game, looking like maybe 21-14, and then you get a dead under as it relates to the total.
You know what I think is real important in this game, too? The Green Bay Packers, what they did last week. How many teams in the NFL, and rightfully so, there is a way that you should be doing business in a game is, let's double you up at the half, we get the ball at the end of the start the third quarter. You got to take the football in this game. If Green Bay wins this, you got to take it, because you know why? You know who's the best play call in the NFL? It's Kyle Shanahan. You want to tell me he's got 3 weeks to prepare his first 10 plays in this ball game? It might be a surgical strike out there where you're down 7-0 right off the bat and brings the crowd into it, and that defense gets fired up here. Strike first if you're the Green Bay Packers in this game. But I'm with Joe. We weren't thinking much about the weather conditions all week long in this game. Ooh, slight drizzle. If this is a start to finish, and I don't mean monsoon, just rain and wet in the forecast, that could change some things up, and you're right. If we're looking from a Green Bay perspective for me, if Aaron Jones has a combined 60 yards rushing and receiving, they're getting blasted in this game. He's got to be around the 100-yard mark. He's got to be.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. But I think that's what's so interesting with this specific matchup, right, is the Niners' vulnerability does appear to be on the ground, but Green Bay is at their best being incredibly aggressive.
Right.
So if you're Green Bay and you come out first down throw, second down throw, all right, well, we got you probably should start with some Aaron Jones carries there, but now you're out of your rhythm. That's, again, we've talked about this a lot, I felt like, when we were kind of doing the college football playoff, right? Like, Washington drawing Texas was perfect because Texas, you can't run on them. Washington, we don't care. We're trying to throw the ball 50 times anyway with our quarterback, and it worked out perfect. That's where, for the Niners, it's like, hey, man, you have to run on us. And it's like, that's not what we're trying to do. Like, we like to run in the fourth quarter when the game's already done and over. There are, as we mentioned, a lot of props in this game that are eye-catching on Jaden Reed's over 42.5 rushing plus receiving, averaging 68.3 yards per game over his final 10 games of the regular season, which is a huge sample size. Shutout last week, identifiable bounce-back spot. Deebo Samuel in the same market, much at higher ask, though, at 81.5 rushing plus receiving. Over in 4 of his last 5 playoff games, removing an NFC championship game where they played almost all of it without a quarterback. And we've seen Green Bay struggle against the run and number 2 wide receivers, Deebo fitting both subscriptions there. And then McCaffrey, under 18.5 rush attempts, under in 26 of 30, or 24 of 30 games as a Niner, all 3 playoff games last season. That is my crunch today, all coming from that same game. Joe, some player props you like here?
Well, in Green Bay, I do like Aaron Jones as it relates to the receiving number today, 18.5. I like Jordan Love. I altered him up to 25+ in regards to the Green Bay side because I think he's going to break contain. I think it's a look that you have to keep an eye out on. I like Dontavian Wicks as well. Got shut down last week. Keep an eye out for him. On the San Fran side, I would say, again, I looked at Deebo, and I looked at Deebo in terms of the receiving number today. The reason why I say that is, again, wet track, the extension of the rushing attack, right? So it's bubble screens, it's short to intermediate throws. That's where maybe Deebo, you get him out in space. So I look to him in regards to that. If we're looking deep shots, is Jennings active today? I thought I saw Juwan Jennings active today.
We don't know the official active still. Later, but
I think he is. Anytime touchdown for him. Because I think he's
alt shot.
Yeah. For San Fran.
Yeah, for me, by the way, Deebo Samuel today, the more we've talked about it this morning, that play just makes so much sense here, and you're going to get a little bit of Deebo Samuel action in the next segment here. But George Kittle, 50.5 yards, I think plays a big part in this one. And what's going to say about Deebo? That rushing number, again, with Kevin talking about maybe that shifting under for McCaffrey. And again, McCaffrey could get 27 carries today, and we all laughed it off like, well, what did you expect?
Yeah,
He was
right.
healthy and ready to go. But I find myself more and more in that Deebo spot here today. Total, again, I won't know until I see the game conditions. Maybe even one of those where you bet in-game and say, you know what, the conditions aren't as bad as I thought. But I do think Green Bay, again, if you're the underdog, you're not just going to be handing off to start this football game. You are throwing haymakers left and right. I can't wait to see it play out. It's going to be a good one. But that 10 points, I don't have a feel. I don't know.
Well, here's what you do.
Would you take Green Bay first half?
No. Sure. I don't know. No. Here's the thing. Really, though, like Ravens-Texans plays out. If Baltimore wins big, I mean, Green Bay's in the number the whole game. Texans win outright, Green Bay should forfeit. I mean, that's like, I mean, both one seeds on the same day. That's the type of stuff that I know I believe in. For you, it all depends on how it translates.
It does, but I love the dogs today, so we'll see. That's scary.
Look, I don't want to have the hand over the button on a certain team
Ravens?
today. Yep. Now, by the way, if the Ravens lose, I'll probably cash out for more money than I would before the game. Exactly.
Listen,
exactly.
I got we have the Green Bay futures. I mean, rumor has it they already paid us out, but no matter what happens today, as a big time dog. Hitting a break. We come back. It is best bet time right here on Pro Football Today.
quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. And we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the Division 4.
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Schuler.
Mike Schuler was a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks. The way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Best bet time here on a Saturday. Kevin Walsh, Donnie Rightside, and Joe Lisi. Have we settled on a postseason order on how we want to?
Whatever wins, I really don't care.
How'd we do last?
What does that mean?
Well, Saturday was a mess because Donnie got injured.
Yeah.
How did we do Sunday?
I don't know.
Was it last Sunday he got injured?
Who were the games on?
By the way,
Sunday?
what did you guys do in that last segment when I wasn't here? You both just stood
we
here by
laughed
yourself?
and we gave out.
Yeah, we had a bunch of fun since you weren't a primetime player. But now I have to try and remember what the Sunday
All right,
props were.
we got about 2 minutes here.
It's all right. Don't worry. Oh, I lost mine. All right.
won.
So
I lost
even
mine
know what it
too.
was,
I
but
think I
won.
lost.
All right, so we'll go hot out of the gate. Donnie Rightside, red hot. Go ahead.
All right, red hot here. We're going to the San Francisco 49ers because I want to get in the game today. See this right here? This is Deebo Samuel's helmet. Send it to me. It's going to be signed, sealed, and delivered after this game. Why? Because Deebo Samuel, anytime touchdown scored today at a plus 110 price, is going to cash in right here, baby. The 49ers. Look, I don't like the 49ers as a team, but I like winning money. At the end of the game, we're holding it up like this, boys.
He's
We got this.
It's like a kid in the candy store. I'll keep it in the same game. Aaron Jones, 1 reception, 13 yards. He breaks out today over 18.5. The extension of the run game. I promise everybody. I'll have a party over tomorrow.
Spoiler. For me, I'm going to a market that I attacked last week, which is a tight end, long reception over against the Houston Texans. Isaiah Likely over 17.5 yards. Not only have the Texans allowed this in 7 of the last 8 tight ends they faced, and not only has Likely hit this in 6 consecutive games, here's the number that stood out the most to me. In games this year with 2+ catches, he is 6-1 against this number. His reception prompt today is 3.5. If Likely misses this, well, that's just not going to happen. In fact,
It's not likely.
It's not so. Oh man, we're on fire. We're so on fire. We're going to do it again tomorrow. But here's the deal: 9 a.m. start time.
Whoa.
Is he going to be here?
Listen, like over under 2.5 hosts in the chair at 9 a.m. All right, guys. And we'll see you then on Pro Football Today. I'm worried about it.